Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our 9th online launch, Pulp Literature Spring 2022. And I have with me in studio today Jen Wynand and Renee Sarajini-Saklakar. And I've got Jen co-hosting. I've given her godlike powers to be able to help me run things backstage. So maybe it'll go a little smoother and there'll be a little fewer hiccups. But
let's not count on anything.
So this is a jam-packed launch today. Not only do we have a lot of our authors reading with us, which is wonderful. I just always love hearing the authors. But we've got a lot of the shortlisted poets for the Magpie Award. And we have our Magpie judge, Renee Sarajini-Saklakar, with us. So I'm just going to get my slideshow going here. Oops. That is not the right slide. I'm not here. I thought things were going well, and I'm going to relaunch this. But in the meantime, Renee, can you tell us a little bit about the poems that you were judging for the Magpie? Just overall impression rather than individual ones while I get this going.
I absolutely would be honored to do that. Hi, everyone. I'm Renee Sarajini-Saklakar. I'm delighted to be here again for this wonderful tradition, for this gorgeous spring launch. What a cover it is. And our own JJ Lee with the cover story. That's magical. I can't wait till we get into this launch. About the poetry that I was privileged to judge. A little bit about the process. So there are some fabulous poetry behind the scene editors at Pulplit, and I'll let Genevieve talk a bit about that. It is she who sends me a long list that has been curated, and then the judging is completely blind, which I think is the best thing. Folks know that I'm judging, the pressure, but I really don't have no idea who has written the poems. And that's the way I think it should be. Genevieve, did you want to just talk a little bit about the backstory process on the contest?
Sure. I was actually super excited and honored to have the opportunity to be the first reader for this contest. Our poetry editors, Danielle Cowper and Emily Osborne, were unable to do so this time, and they're the ones that select all the wonderful poetry that we have in the magazine and would normally do the first reads. So I felt a little bit of pressure, but reading blind is wonderful because I need to really visit the poem itself. And so it's interesting as you kind of go through and see themes. I think in the shortlist, by the time we got to the shortlist, I noticed breakfast was a big theme. Did you notice? And it's interesting to see what people touch on and how they approach things in their own voice. And it's a wonderful honor.
Well, the honor was mine. You did such a discerning curation. We get quite a few entries from, I would say, all over North America. Correct me if I'm wrong. And then to be presented with this curated list so thoughtfully, it was a real pleasure. And I thought all the poems were beautifully constructed. I feel that the submissions to Pulplit in general, for folks interested in maybe submitting next year, I hope you do if you're listening, these are very well-crafted, sophisticated, well-managed poems. And there's a real focus on language, syntax, and form, which I think is making a big comeback, at least because I'm writing in form almost exclusively these days. That's what I think. Free verse, very hard to master and do well. They still appear and they're fabulous, but there is this interesting trend line of a return to even complex forms as we'll learn as the launch goes forward. So again, many thanks. It was my privilege, really.
And this seems like an opportune time to add, speaking of form and Renee's wonderful form, I want to give a little plug, now that I've got my correct slides up, to Brahma and the Beggar Boy, which is an epic fantasy in verse, which is something we don't get very often. I mean, the last epic fantasy in verse I read was Spencer.
Oh, I will take that company. I'm so honored and thrilled. This book came out last year, and you've honored me again with the murder mystery ghost story. Shout out to JJ Lee. Shout out to Jen, who was my editor, to appear on the cover with this amazing artwork you always secure. I love this slide. Please send me a copy of this slide.
Oh, sure. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So here we have the shortlist, and I am going to bring myself off so I can bring on our shortlisted poets. Jen, do you want to announce them and I'll bring them on as we know. They're in alphabetical order by first name.
Sure. And we'll be reading the names of all the folks, not just those who are here, I'm assuming. Okay, we'll start. So Cara Waterfall for Grief Body and Harvest. Catherine Lewis for Golden. Heather Simony McLeod, All Evidence to the Contrary. Jude Neal for Blaze of the Universe. Kevin Spence for Big German Dialect Word Clangily Inserted Here. Lori Ann Furr for Tree Language. Moni Brar for Uninhabited. Patty Palmer Baker for Ode to Breakfast. And Susan Alexander for Waffles and Strawberries. Congratulations to all. Well, I've been given these powers. Now I need to figure out how to use them.
All right. Oh, she put me on instead. Sorry, sorry for the delay getting you on there, Patty. We can only get 6 people on at a time. So congratulations to all these wonderful shortlisted poems. And, I think Jen did a wonderful job selecting them. I loved every single one of the ones on the shortlist. So I am going to remove myself and add Renee, who is going to announce the second runner-up. So let me remove.
Congratulations to each of you. What a pleasure. There's a feedback noise, so I'm just speaking slowly. It will correct itself. Congratulations to each of you. Amazing poetry, a deep privilege to read. Of course, I read them blind. I had no idea what and who I was reading. And it is my great privilege, because we've got a long list of things to do, although very exciting. I'm just going to get right into it. And I'm going to begin by reading what I wrote about the second runner-up, and then I will announce the winner. And again, congratulations to each of you. Some hard decisions had to be made. So our second runner-up for the 2022 Magpie Poetry Award. Here's my comments. A rollicking ride through history, language, and memoir, all told in long lines, deftly assembled to tug at both our hearts and our intellect. There is so much to marvel here. I wish I could award $1 million for this second runner-up poem, but what a privilege it is to announce Big German Dialect Word clankingly inserted here, Kevin Spence.
Oh, mein Gott im Himmel. Oh my gosh, thank you. Oh my. Well, thank you so much. This is a very exciting kind of setup and a great honor. And thank you so much for spending time with this poem and these words. Yeah, thank you.
My absolute honor. Everything I said, everything I said about your brilliant intellect, memoir, heart,
Mhm.
long lines. You got it all going on. Yeah, it was an honor. It was a privilege.
Thank you.
It was only after the decisions had been made and, we were going through it, making sure everything, and I started to think about things. And I'm so grateful that I didn't think about those things while I was reading them. There's so much to focus on, right? And we, in Pulp Lit, we're very much looking at craft and form. So it was only towards the very end when it was all set up, I have to confess, I looked at that birth date that a dear one I know and love and you know and love shares.
Yes.
And I started to think, oh, but congratulations, my friend. It's just marvelous.
Thank you so much. And it's interesting you talk about form. I've been teaching poetry and thinking a lot about form over the last year. And this poem came under kind of the pressure cooker of teaching form and thinking about form. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome. And we have so much to learn from your skill, Kevin, and your deftness, as I've said in my judges' comments, with the long line. Be proud.
Yeah. Now I'm totally in a daze. Do
you have time to read? Do you have time to read it?
I could.
I know you have to leave.
Yeah, and then I have to fly. I'll read it and fly. Yeah.
Okay. Read it and fly.
Here it is. Big German dialect word clankily inserted here. The problem with the German language is Germans, but really above all, one. Not Adolf. Attack! Always attack! Anderson, a chess master from the 1800s. Angreifen! Immer angreifen! The chessophiles rooted for this successful and likable bloke, but rather the other, on whose birthday mine happens to land. When the casting director said I'd make a perfect Nazi, she was joking, but I mean, scheisse. During the war, some of my kin were conscientious objectors in the stalemate of jail. They belonged to a sect whose historic move was to refuse to take up arms against anyone. The broad term is Anabaptists, not the Taufrich von Munster ones who formed a communal government in 1534, which enforced polygamy. No, not in your life. Bestimmt nicht. My ancestors were decidedly more monogamous and pacifist, a position that roundly got them slaughtered. They trekked to Russia for farmland for hundreds of years, poised as pawns for the empire. And then these Mennoniten, fled to North America, huddled in German all the livelong way, all drangten sich auf Platzdusk. To be clear, they weren't the horse and buggy types you'll find in Peterborough and other chessboard farmscapes. My great-grandparents were ever so slightly more modern, though still believing themselves to be a people apart. As a footnote to history, despite their pacifism, some Mennonites formed units for self-defense through the endgame of the Russian Civil War. My grandfather could have been one volunteer. Mein Großvater hat ein Freiwilliger sein können. His swift strike across the face of my mother's brother sent stars reeling around their heads, possibly from the burnt-out tactics in the tendons of his large body. Under her mother tongue, my mom studied strategies to safety through the striking constellations, and much later, when her husband fought unseen skirmishes from his head, our mother's smarts rose to the surface to protect us. To this day, her faith is encoded privately, and she coughs over the word love. She prefers math and games of strategy. Mahjong's on Monday, so don't call in the morning. We rarely talk about how she saw past poverty's near checkmate with some help from her father. When he came by, he had chickens. My older sisters were in charge of chopping a head off as the first course towards dinner. Like many, I imagined myself adopted and searched through her bedroom closet for papers that radiated the truth. I rifled through so much of her private life in her purse and under her bed, not knowing what went through my hands. Even a family tree seemed a forgery. Like many, I failed to imagine others groping in fear through the night. Wie groß bist du? Was the playful question. How tall are you? Her mum had asked her, which she passed on to her granddaughter one evening. A child's game of stretching arms up to reach for a castling height. So groß. as if by extension one could stick out one's tongue to say more. You see, the problem with German is a problem all around. How is it that we've survived as parts of a body traced out of stars, which are themselves aligned so unstrategically? How have we fallen through the ages to sprawl in this miracle moment through which we reword ourselves with language that fails in the exceptions and exemptions of time's twists, burls, and roots, while knowing that silence is the most articulate thing to come from the night sky of our open mouths? Großdeutsch dialect words kommen klinkend her verwirrt. I don't know what to do at the end because I should pause at the end and let things settle in, but then I do have the title in German. So there, I tried to find that out.
It was the perfection of a reading you graced us with. Thank you. So beautiful. It's a stunning poem. How wonderful to hear you read it.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I know you have a live reading to head off to now, so enjoy that. And
so Thanks,
congratulations.
Thank you, Kevin. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Oops. Oh, sorry. All right. Thank you, Renee, and we'll bring you back again midway through the show to announce the first runner-up, and then at the end for the winner. So poets, you can head out of the studio now, hang out in Discord if you like, watch on YouTube. And I just want to bring up this next slide. And I want to talk about our cover artist, Herman Lau. But first, just a little bit of housekeeping. So we have a number of specials going on today. We have a spring launch code, which is turtles all the way down, in reference to our cover. And if you go to our bookstore, you can get 20% off on anything that's in the store. So it doesn't have to be this issue, 20% off on whatever novels we have, writing guides, back issues. Go and fill your basket up with as much as you like, and use that code, turtles all the way down. You've only got one use per person, so fill your basket all at once. And the other thing I want to announce is that the Hummingbird Flash Fiction Prize is closing June 15th, but the early bird rate ends tomorrow. So tomorrow's the last day to get your entries in for $15. This is flash fiction, 1,000 words or fewer. And yeah, those were the two announcements for now. And Jen, I think we're supposed to do a prize draw right now. So, and I hope that...
I believe this is for a digital issue.
A digital issue. But actually, maybe I'll wait. I just don't know. I haven't checked on the...
I see that we're up to 8 folks entered.
Okay. Well, let's get some more folks entered. Go to the Discord channel. The link is in the YouTube. Go and get into Discord. Go to the door prizes and enter your name in sequential order, and you will and you have a chance to win a door prize. Discord's telling me that it's party mode, which yes it is, but I don't want that notification, Discord. So I'll do the door prize a little bit later. Let me remove these tickers because no.
So fancy.
I know.
I guess 9 launches like this.
It won't let me remove. Oh, there we go. Hide. There we go. So the gorgeous artwork for our cover is by Herman Lau. He's an Edmonton artist, and as you can see from his photo, a martial artist as well. I wanted to add that photo of him in there just to see that you can see he serves as a model for some of his own work. And And this painting is called Black Tortoise Kowtows. And he said about it that it was originally for a set of tarot cards, and this would have been Zero the Fool. So, Jen, do you have the quote there from what he said about it?
Oh, I can grab it. I can also encourage people to go to our website. It was actually just featured recently in a blog post.
Oh, that's true. Yes. So you can read that in the blog post.
Yes. So it would probably take me a little bit to find that. But I will do that.
Okay, we'll leave that because we're running over time already. But go and read what he has to say about it. It's very interesting. And do look up his work on Instagram. He's got gorgeous drawings and gorgeous photos. But now I want to get on to our feature author. And we have JJ Lee.
Look at those gorgeous covers.
So, hi, JJ.
Hey, hello. Good morning.
So JJ has been a friend of the magazine for a long time. He was our second feature author. That's issue 2 up there with the robotic teddy bear on the cover, which JJ painted. He's a man of many talents, and artist as well as writer, as well as memoirist, and an incredible pulp writer and mentor to a lot of those poets that we saw. JJ has mentored many of them in the writer's studio. I've also got a picture of his book, The Measure of a Man, there, because JJ, you're 733 copies away from earning
Thank
out?
you for mentioning it. So The Measure of a Man, the story of a father, a son, and a suit is a 10-year-old book. I've never seen any royalties from it because you have to earn out on your advance. And just recently, I discovered I was only 744 copies away from earning out. And so I would actually see my first royalty check on the book if I can just sell these last 744 copies that are somewhere in the universe. I'm not sure. They're in a warehouse, probably in like Etobicoke or some part of Scarborough or something like that.
I feel like we need like a Father's Day push, JJ. Like
That's
how many
right.
weeks until Father's Day? And it's like we can make this happen for JJ.
That's
it's
right.
a phenomenal memoir. It is.
My plan was to go selling it on the street try to sell as many copies, but it's been raining so much here in Vancouver. It's just been impossible. I'm imagining getting all my books wet. The ones I might have to buy all 744 and then hit the streets. We'll see.
It's wonderful.
What we are offering is anybody listening to this, even in the recording, send us a proof of purchase for this book. I think you wanted the trade paperback, right? Because
That's right. It'd be lovely to see the trade paperback version.
Just send a proof of purchase for the trade paperback, and we will offer you a coupon good for 50% off any of our issues that feature JJ, or all of them. If you want all of them,
Yeah, get them all.
get them all. 50% off. Digital or hardcover, or digital or trade, whatever you like for our issues, but get the trade paperback for JJ's book. And that includes the current issue, so the spring issue as well. So, go out. It's a fabulous book. I love that book.
So good. So
Thank you for the hard sell there, Jen. I really appreciate it.
All right. So on to the actual story here. So, JJ, tell us a little bit about Becker and the history of the man in the long black coat.
Well, the history of the man in the long black coat, whom we discovered later to be named Becker, it's all thanks to you, because you encouraged me to sort of spread my wings and enjoy and indulge in forms that are outside what I'm known for. So I'm mostly known as a memoirist and an essayist and a journalist. But I've always had a love for genre fiction and pulp fiction. And it was with your encouragement that I came up with a story called The Man in a Long Black Coat. And it's a mashup of all things that I love, like Captain America, Indiana Jones. So it's a thriller, adventure, action story with a paranormal or Lovecraftian, chthonic, undertone or reality, actually. And that's what I've been working on. So that story came out years ago. Like I can't remember the first Man in a Long Black Coat, what year it was, maybe 2012.
2015.
And
2015. Yeah.
And then what happened with this? This is the third story, Gumdrop, a Beggar story, which is in this issue, issue 34, is the latest version of it, and it was just a great opportunity to revisit this milieu of a monster-killing quasi or pseudo-Nazi and his ambiguous sort of moral code, and he's the context and the world building that is part of is evolving. So it's really fun. It's got swords and Cthulhu monsters, so you can't go wrong, really.
Yeah, you can't. All right, can you give us a page or two?
Yeah, sure. It's called Gumdrop, a Beggar story. The setting is 1952. Alexander II is a Chinese-American World War II veteran who was participating in a special squad that was involved in hunting down Nazi occultists. But he's disgraced and has been sort of drummed out of the army and army intelligence, but he has been offered a second chance to do what he does best. Gumdrop, a Beggar story. A little excerpt. The top sheet spelled out my orders. You will pose as a U.S. Navy steward, rank steward 3rd class, and serve the residents of Hut 17 at Camp Gumdrop. Order number 2. Observe and report the nature and details of their conversations, especially those carried out in German. Order number 3. Only report to Captain Cyril Stevenson at evening debriefs after your steward duties are completed. Do not seek Captain Stevenson or reach out to him in any way. The means and methods of your contact and communication will be determined by Stevenson as the situation allows. Order number 4. Under no circumstances are you to reveal your past military service or qualifications, your language skills, or any other detail that would make the residents of Hut 17 believe you are anything other than a colored servant. Order number 5. Burn these orders upon reading. That's all. I had never heard of Camp Gumdrop, and there was no mention of Becker. I went to the open front cargo door and I signaled Tasker to come over. There's nothing about him. I don't know anything about it. All I know is if you say yes, I'm supposed to kit you up. He pointed to a set of tables against the wall of the hangar and put you on the plane. Then I make a call to the officers club, tell a guy you're ready, and then, but you have to say so. I shook my head, thought about it, then nodded. Taster took me to the tables. They were covered in differently sized Navy steward uniforms, boots, winter coats. Independence Day was less than a week away. What the hell is up with all this winter stuff? Tasker replied by holding up an extreme cold weather parka. It had fur around the hood. This will fit you. Swap out of your civvies. In half an hour, I was fully kitted, dressed in navy blues like Popeye, and had topped the outfit off with a white cap. I had trouble keeping it on my head. After a year of civilian life, my hair was the longest it had been since I joined the army. I stepped outside the hangar and dug out my Zippo. Some guys had engraved lighters that said where they had been. North Africa, Italy, Normandy, maybe all three. You know, what battles they had fought, how many fighters they had shot down, that kind of shit. Mine was entirely blank. If I dropped it or lost it, you would never know to whom it belonged. I held my orders, envelope and all, by my fingertips and ignited the papers. They shrank and curled. I held on until I couldn't bear the heat and let go. The ashen remains floated into the sky. A set of headlights approached and a sedan pulled alongside Tasker's. 3 men stepped out. 2 were Navy. The officers unloaded luggage from their trunk, and with it they boarded the transport. The 3rd man was not quite as tall as Tasker. He was leaner and wore a dark suit, though it was too dim to tell what color. He didn't wear a hat, and his hair on top was long and slicked back, but the sides were shaved down nearly to the skin. His face was long and horsey. His eyes glinted. He lit a cigarette and looked directly at Beatty, Tasker, and me. But he didn't speak. He just watched us without flinching. He drew on his smoke, tapping off the ashes after every puff. And when he was done, he flicked the butt out the hangar door. He reached into the trunk and pulled out what I assume was a long fishing rod case. He embarked, and the twin engines fired up. "You better go," Tasker said. "That's your guy." Thanks. Did that make any sense? I don't know. I like that
awesome.
reading. So
It was awesome. People have to find out what was in that case and what it's going to be used for.
Excellent. That's a great idea.
It did. It was awesome. And yeah, I just love the atmosphere in these stories, but particularly this last one. I just feel like you've captured that time period and the sort of noir feel is beautiful.
I wanted to go full pulp, so thank you for the opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
It's so remarkable to me, though, how you just beautifully weave these really concrete, literal details grounded in reality, and then this just nutso's other world that it's just perfection.
Well, you have to do that, because if you want someone to swing a sword in 1952, you're going to have to find some excuse to make it happen, right? And so it takes a little contortion. So thank you for that.
Yeah, couldn't stop reading. Brilliant.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, JJ.
Of course.
Yeah, please, if you can, head on over to Discord and you can chat more with your fans or follow along on YouTube.
Cool.
And hopefully we'll have a chance to chat after the launch if you're still around.
Okay.
And sorry to interrupt, but I did mention the cover art has appeared on the blog post, and I believe JJ's feature post has also appeared. There's a little snippet from the interview. There's a link to the memoir. So head over to the blog and
head over to our blog and you'll find a link to JJ's book.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you very much, and have a great launch today. And congratulations on issue 34, all of you.
Yeah, I can't believe it's issue 34.
You're right.
And you've been with us since the beginning. It's like...
My hair will be white one day.
Well, thank you, JJ.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. So now we have our other partner in crime with us, Mel. Mel, as everyone knows, is one of the co-founders of Pulp Literature and our wonderful interior illustrator. So most of the drawings you see, I forgot to mention, actually, let me just go back, that this drawing here of the obelisk is one of JJ's. And like I said, JJ's a fine artist as well. So occasionally we get other artwork, but 90% of the art you'd see in the magazine is Mel's. She does this amazing black and white drawings. So you'll see a bunch more of them throughout the launch.
Thanks,
and they're pretty
Jen.
much all hers.
Thanks, Jen. It's a privilege to illustrate these amazing stories.
And Mel is also an author of several novels. We've got Stella Ryman series, Stella Ryman and the Fairmount Manor Mysteries, and The Labors of Mrs. Stella Ryman. And we're currently serializing Pretty Lies in the magazine. And we also have the extra coming out very soon. I know we've been promising to get it out for a year now. And what can I say? It's just, I don't know, pandemic delays, things have just kept stalling its release. But we do plan to get it out very soon. So you can find links to all of Mel's novels on Pulp Literature under novels. But Mel, do you want to say a little bit about Pretty Lies and maybe just give us a little snippet of it?
Yeah, just a snippet. A story set in the golden summer of 1974 in Howe Sound in BC on Bowen Island. A couple of our poets are from there that you'll see today. And Jenny Riley is inspired after the tragic death of her true love inspired by the story of Orpheus and Eurydice, and wants to go after it, which has connected her with a ghost that is more hindering than helping and placing her in terrible danger. And in fact, the night before, Jenny tried to follow Moira and just about drowned. So just a little tiny bit from the beginning of this section for issue 34. Frances, the cousin, set up her deck chairs side by side. She gave Jenny a cup of coffee and lectured her at length and at volume on boat safety. Jenny took the opportunity to do some logical thinking about seeing ghosts. She set her coffee on Frances's deck rail, leaned forward in her chair, and rested her chin on her fists. The sky over Corner Bay gleamed Delft blue. The 9 o'clock ferry to Langdale chugged by white against Gambier's coniferous coast. Frances elaborated on her theme. You don't just stand up in a rowboat, one hand for the ship, one hand for yourself. How could you be so careless? I have no idea. Jenny was hard-pressed to keep a neutral expression on her face because a balloon of excitement was expanding in her head. The impossible had flown from the realm of her imagination and landed squarely in reality because she hadn't imagined nearly being drowned. She had truly nearly drowned, and the blame lay with Moira, the young woman who walked across the water. I'll leave it there for now. The rest of it is in issue 34. It's a good issue. I'm so impressed with these stories.
Thanks, Mel. That's great. And now I want to bring our next author in. And we have Mitchell Shanklin.
Hello.
Hi, Mitchell. Can you, I was going to read out everybody's bios, but I think it's actually more interesting if you tell us about yourself.
Sure. Yeah, I live in Seattle. I tend to write a bunch of short stories, fantasy, sci-fi, whatever comes to mind. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
So you're geographically pretty close to us.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is a really interesting story that you wrote. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, sure. So I was participating in the Clarion West Write-a-thon. Clarion West is a literary workshop, and they were having a fundraising event. And they did an interesting thing where for 6 weeks, kind of along with the workshop, they set up flash fiction groups of random people. And you were supposed to try to write a flash story every week. And I think I only wrote a flash story on like half of the weeks, and I really only liked 2 of the stories that I wrote, but this was one of them. So I did the first draft of this just like in an hour one morning, added some words and revised it a bit, but yeah, so just kind of sat down and tried to do something. I believe the inspiration, there's a writing prompt Twitter account that I follow that tweets out daily prompts. And there was a poem that inspired this one, although I don't actually recall what poem it was.
All right. Well, can you give us a little taste of it?
Yeah, sure. A gentleman's primer for winning debates with your friends and enemies. While others might advise you to train in rhetoric or logic, I maintain that the surest and quickest way to obtain victory over your debate partner is to steal the words from their mouth and hide them away. First, you must craft the inverse of their argument. An inverse argument should invoke confusion, anger, and perhaps a dash of fear in the heart of your opponent. Conjure as many other emotions in as many different organs as you can manage. Ideally, their response should only involve emotions that originate below the neck. Those of the liver or kidney can be especially potent. If you are certain that your opponent possesses their original appendix, this is an excellent avenue of attack. Search for concepts which rhyme with those employed by your opponent, both semantically and syntactically, but which are off-kilter, non-isomorphic, disharmonic. For example, if they argue that it is heartless to withhold food from the starving, you might posit that rich foods can cause great damage to the human heart. Second, you must whisper these words within the range of their subconscious hearing. This fluctuates throughout the day based on the amount of ambient astral radiation. If your area has few nearby ley lines, at noon on a clear day, place yourself no closer than 20, but no further than 30 feet away from your opponent. A whisper just loud enough to accidentally awake a sleeping babe should do the trick. Adjust your distance and volume as needed based on the local climate. Third, you must wait for their argument and its inverse to combine, to ferment and gestate. The average gestation period is 2 weeks, but there is a high degree of variance. Look for your opponent to develop especially chapped lips, or to randomly burst into song less often than they normally do. You will be able to tell that the birth is imminent when the keening starts. It is impossible to miss. The elongated jaw, the silent involuntary screams which send dogs and other pets running into the night. Fourth, you must catch the argument child. A net of fine-woven silver is traditional, but any metal which is resistant to corrosion will do. Be careful here. If your opponent catches sight of you with the net before the eruption is imminent, they may become wroth. Now others would recommend burning or beheading the child, or perhaps exposing it to the elements. Never do this. Martyrdom is a gift. If the argument child is sufficiently mature and developed, made of flesh and song rather than mist and murmurs, you might try to absorb it. This is the surest route to victory, for not only will your opponent be unable to recall their thesis, you will be able to twist it against them at will. The entirety of the child must enter you within a single swallow. Remember that the appropriate analog for this process is not consumption, but reverse birth. Your mouth must be as the angry womb, which seeks to reclaim what it has given to the world, that knows that it was released too early. Let the child dissolve back into its component parts within you, so that you may integrate the contradiction. And I'll stop there.
That was great. I love the tone of that. It's just it's a wonderful, just a wonderful prose form and this slightly archaic style. It's just lovely.
It's also a wonderful primer for folks who want their stories to leap out of the submissions pile.
It is, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, so something like that is, absolutely going to catch our eye for those of you who are, thinking about submitting. Now, you can't do that because now we've seen that.
Yeah.
Now you have to think something different.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And thank you for having me on at your launch.
Well, it was lovely to meet you, and hopefully we'll be able to do an in-person event at some point. And actually, I should bring that up. We do have in the works an in-person event planned for August 6th, and it's called Follow Your Muse. It's a mini writing conference at Vancouver Public Library. It will be free to the public, and it will be limited attendance. So there will be workshops and ways of working your manuscript, and we will have some speakers as well. So, and one of I think our keynote speaker is going to be Renee. So everybody mark your calendars for August 6th. And Mitchell, if you happen to feel like a drive up to Vancouver in the summer, do drop in, and we will have all the books out, and we will have a big signing as well. So you can actually sign and get signed print copies of all these back issues that we haven't been able to launch in person over the last 2 years.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll see if that works.
All right. Well, thank you for coming on, Mitchell, and we'll hang hang out backstage in Discord, and we'll maybe see you at the end of the program.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. And let's do that. Let's do that prize draw now. So I will get out my polyhedral dice.
And we are up to 11 now.
Yes, I saw that. So it's like, so that means I have to use a 20-sided. We'll go with the blue 20-sided today. Oh no, I have a 12. Look, I have a 12-sided. And it's green like the issue.
Yay.
And number 10. Who is number 10?
Number 10 is Leslie Wibberley.
Leslie. So you win a digital copy of issue 24, issue 34. Issue 24 was the last time we had JJ as the feature author, so it's actually been 10 issues. Issue 34. If you already have that, if you already have a subscription, you get it anyway, and you want to send it to a friend, just let us know. And please give your contact info to Brooklyn or Melissa, who are hanging out backstage. And let me just... And there are a few authors who couldn't be here today, so we don't want to skip them over. And Jen, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about this very short poem by Alex Kidd.
Sure. So Alex Kidd is a writer and poet who was born in Red Deer. He now lives in Vancouver, and he's completing his BFA in creative writing at UBC. And he's got work all over the place, including a COVID anthology. And so it's a very short poem, but it's a very powerful poem. Shall I read it?
I think we have time for you to read it.
Okay.
It's very short.
Yes. Complicated grief. The dead inside me, when slow clouds gather, get excited for storm. I pretend my eyes are prairie birds, even though they are my father's. I've written this poem before. That's it.
Wow.
Short.
You know, I'm a big fan of little poems, as well as big poems.
Queen.
And I just always admire when a poet can just pack a lot in.
Yeah, and it is. You know, sometimes you want the big complicated words, and sometimes you want the tiny short ones. And
yes, I love clanking German words. I have clanking German words in my family too. There's room for everything.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
All right. So our next author, let me just remove this. Our next author is Kimberly Aslett. And Kimberly is a second-time author with us because the story that she's going to read today was an honorable mention for the Hummingbird, but she was also honorable mention for the Bumblebee last year when we published that story in the previous issue. So obviously her stories strike a chord with our first readers and our judges. Kimberly, welcome. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, thanks for having me here. And I have to say how delighted I was with the illustration before I say anything else, so I don't forget to say that.
Thanks, Kimberly. I'm glad you like it.
It was so nice to see. I'm in Ontario. I'm from Northern Ontario. I'm a medical librarian. It's still odd to hear myself referred to as an author. I'm new to this and never thought that I would be doing any writing. So I did a master's in English literature, but it was always from the other side, from the reading side, that I really enjoyed fiction and nonfiction and all the rest. But in my middle ages, I took a community writing class, and it was AWA method. And we would sit and write to prompts. And so a number of short works came out of that. And I think this was one of them. Just a brief, it started out as just 10 minutes of writing, and then I went back to it. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Can you give us a little snippet from it?
Sure. So clothesline, reach into the laundry basket, grasp an edge of fabric, a selvage or seam, pull it from the hard, cold twist of all the other towels. It will hold the shape the wringer washer forced it into. Tease out the edge. When you've got two corners, give it a snap, not a shake or a wiggle. The very best is a hard snap that forces all the twists out in a noise that startles the old cat right off the step or the birds into the air. Grab two clothespins from the cloth bag that's faded and has a hanger poking through one corner. One corner, pin, next corner, next towel overlapping, next pin. From the clothesline step, you can see the backfield, weeds dry and green gray in the low morning sun. This task is the one you can sense and smell so strongly, it will come back to you in dreams and in hypnosis years later, when other memories have all tangled up at the sides and fallen away or faded. The memory is so deep, it feels like a hard nut at your center, the same center that doesn't want to relax in the yoga classes, where you hear the chatter from your own brain in every silent moment. The center that won't give up its tears and pain in expensive therapy. You were 5. You had to reach to put the towels up there. It was a big help, she told you. You felt like you were doing a complicated dance. The towels were used hard over the years. They lost color, became a similar yellow-gray, no matter the bleach or soap. They were used until they got holes, then they were cut into rags. Sometimes the rags got stained with grease or blood. Your mother would rinse the bloodied rags separately to get out the stains, her head down over a small pail in the kitchen sink. Your family left that house, and the place that was rented after that had no clothesline, only a dryer. The dryer was in the basement, where you could retreat from the sounds of your father's boots coming in from working in the yard, greasy and sweaty and strong. If you were alone in the house, you would wait until he left to go back out before getting a sandwich. Sometimes you could play the cassette player to drown out the noises from upstairs. I think I'll stop there.
Wonderful. Oops, let me get a better layout than that. That was awesome. Thank you for reading that, Kimberly. It's so meditative, and
It's a wonderful story.
and there's this undercurrent of tension, under this mundane task, which is, isn't there always tension under mundane tasks? We've always got something going on, regardless of what we're doing, but you bring it out so delicately. It's just that hint, right? And it's so skillfully done.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I hope you'll continue to send in stories for our contests, because we love publishing them.
Well, I'm getting quite in the habit of writing them now. So
Yeah. Wonderful. I'm going to do another prize draw, and this one is for a print copy of the issue. And this one is number 1.
Number 1 is Susan Peters.
Oh, right. Well, Susan, you will get a print copy. Susan usually gets a print copy anyway, so if you have someone you'd like to give it to, let us know, and we will send that out with them when we do the mail out. I've got the boxes of books here beside me, ready to mail out, probably next week. All right, so what do we have up on our agenda? There's Melissa. So thanks again, Kimberly, and do hang out backstage, and we can chat more informally after the launch. We'll see you. So we've just brought on one of our junior editors, Melissa, and your hair has changed color since the last time we saw you. That is lovely.
Very pretty.
So, Melissa, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Oh, you're muted, or Oh, we still cannot hear you.
My apologies. My mic setting was incorrect, but can you hear me now?
Oh, we can hear you now.
Fabulous. Yeah, so I've been with Pulp for just over 2 years now. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Creative Writing and am currently wading my way through Greek mythology and a novel. But that's me.
Which we're dying to see eventually.
Which honestly, I'm 10,000 words away from the end of the first draft. Give or take a little under. Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm fingers crossed going to get it done this weekend. It's my
10,000 words in a weekend?
I did it the last time we had a long weekend, so it's just under 10K. Like I think it's a little closer to 8, but like
no problem. I'm sure you'll be fine.
And I mean, we're not going for quality. We're going for like we're getting it done.
First draft.
And then we're editing because oh boy.
Awesome. Yeah.
But I'm getting there.
So yeah, we it's and before we get on to this, I want to just why have we not got our slides up? Here we go. I want to make mention. So Melissa is also one of our first readers. They do a lot of reading for contests as well as Slush. And I wanted to remind people in the wake of Kimberly's wonderful story to get your stories in for the Hummingbird Prize for Flash Fiction. You've got a while. It closes June 15th, but the early bird rate closes tomorrow. So tomorrow is your last day to get it in for $15 instead of $20.
And if Melissa's going to write 10,000 words in a weekend, I think folks can write 1,000 words or less in like
before tomorrow.
Yeah.
And edit it, and you even have extra time to edit in there.
Actually, here's a little submission check. The price changes, but you can still you can pay for it now, but still submit it next week or something like that. It's not, you don't have to pay and submit at the same time. If you leave a big gap, our Sam Olson, our wonderful assistant who looks after the contest, will start chasing you down for your document. But all you have to do now is pay for it now, and then submit it before the end of the contest. So if a deadline in itself is not enough incentive, then paying for it and then having to use that entry is incentive for getting something written. So Melissa, you were going to talk a little bit about this poem from Mitchell Bodo, who also couldn't be here today.
Yeah, so Mitchell Bodo is a poet from Hamilton, Ontario, and he earned his Bachelor of Arts in English Literature, graduating summa cum laude from McMaster University, and his writing process is as follows. He gets sad, then he writes it down, and if that's not a mood, I don't know what is. So I'm going to read a couple stanzas from his poem, Ars Poetica. Because tonight we're celebrating that I am not dead, that Lula didn't eat my last joint, and I do not have to rush her to the hospital. Yes, I'm guilty of sometimes being ironic. I'm 22 now and still can't picture what it's like to feel earnestly about anything. It's not that I don't enjoy the touch of a window pane bathed in sunlight or laughing hysterically at harmless displays of human stupidity, but my stomach aches for a burrito, and there are patches of time when I look up into the sky and squint, like when my brother held up an entire funeral procession because he had to pee. He was only one of the pallbearers. Don't feel bad about it, Brock. Would you like me to read the rest? It's about a page.
Sorry, I know that we'll leave it at that. Thank you. It's thanks for reading that.
Absolutely.
It's always nice to get a little bit from the authors who can't be here. I'm just sending messages to people who are up. And I've got a whiny dog behind me who obviously can't figure out that there's another way around.
I used to learn from my cat, who's just like calmly napping.
There's no cameo for your cat this time.
Can you see her? Oh, I'm getting a look because I've disturbed her nap. Never mind.
Oh dear. Oh, dear. All right. Well, next up, we've got two more authors before we announce the first runner-up for the Magpie. So our next author is Lorena Stevens. Welcome, Lorena.
Hello.
So Lorena's been in the publishing business for some time now. And do you want to tell us a little bit about your background, both as a writer and a publisher?
Oh my goodness, that's going to take up all the time you've got. Suffice it to say, I've been at this in one form or another since 1980 as both a writer, a publisher, an editor. 2 years ago, I had to close down my publishing house, Five Rivers Publishing, for various reasons that we don't need to discuss. Whatever. And it exists today pretty much as a vanity press for me. Why not?
Why not? Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, that's me pretty much in a nutshell. I don't know if you want more. I could pontificate for hours.
Would we had time?
Would we had time? Well, that's a segue if there ever was one.
Yeah, no kidding.
So yeah, tell us a bit about your story.
Yeah, I research way too much. I was researching for a short story that was supposed to be about a neurologist from Windsor Castle. And while looking at all the different historical timepieces that had been created from the beginning of recorded time, I came across an actual story about a timepiece known still today as Arnold 294 that was created by a now famous clockmaker, horologist. The timepiece was originally supposed to be aboard the Erebus from the very famed and doomed Franklin expedition. You have to understand that these timepieces, any equipment that was aboard a Royal Navy ship, was considered part of the state. And if you were found with any of that equipment, it was a hanging offense. That's still on the books.
Wow.
Lo and behold, this piece, this ship's clock, came up for auction as a carriage clock. And when they began to examine this carriage clock, they discovered that it was in fact the Arnold 294 that was from the Erebus. So the question is, how did that timepiece get from the Erebus that was lost in what is now Canada's Arctic to an auction in England? This was, I can't remember when the auction came up. It was in this millennia. So that's fascinating. That's the stuff.
It's a very good question.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I came up with a possibility, and thus the story Would We Had Time.
All right. Well, why don't you give us a little bit of it?
Alrighty. Although it's one of many he's made, this chronometer feels heavy. There's a weight to it which has nothing to do with science or logic, nothing to do with the precision 8-day movement, the spring détente escapement. Arnold 294. He writes that designation in his inventory, noting it's been purchased by the British Royal Navy. Time and time and time is what he makes. The recording of it, the marking of it, even the fabrication of it, he thinks. He wonders, would we even be aware of time were it not for these machines, these values we have placed upon the movement of the sun, the dividing of our days? What if he were to stop making clocks altogether? Perhaps the memory of time might slip away and we'd forget about placing ourselves in peril in the pursuit of the terrifying unknown. Apparently this one's to be assigned to the Erebus, which is now under command of Sir John Franklin and headed for the Arctic. He settles it into its box, French fitted and lined with baize. He looks over to its twin on his workbench, not yet numbered. He tries to brush off his sense of doom. It's that he's tired, he's sure. Long hours, little sleep, need for a meal and his bed, and a few hours respite. "Mr. Young, if you please," he yells, and his apprentice ducks in. "Take this to the quartermaster's office at Navy Hall, right smart about it." And he closes the lid on the box, fixes the brass latch, and pushes it across his bench. He feels the weight of the timepiece in his hand, knows it well. Arnold 294, the impossibility of it 15 years gone. He looks up at the relic of a man before him, feels the weight of that knowledge. "Mr. Young? Oh, you know me, sir." "Only just." He gestures to the chronometer. "How?" Looking at the man before him, he remembers the young apprentice, only 18, and the apology written in haste. "Signed on to Erebus, my deepest apologies, sir, for my failure of faith and my eternal gratitude for yours." "Why?" Young leans heavily on the counter, seeming to fall into a swoon. Arnold ducks around, takes the boy, surely a man now, under the arm and leads him to the back room where he settles him into a chair, pours him brandy. "Shall I fetch the doctor?" Young swallows the brandy, gasps and waves it off. "No, no more, no doctor, sir, I need your help." And the creature breaks down, cradling his head in his hands, his sobs racking that frail frame. "What I have seen, what I have done. God help me. The chronometer, where is it?" The boy makes to rise, falls back, holding his head. Arnold hastily fetches the chronometer. It feels so heavy, and places it in Young's hands. And I guess that's where we'll leave it for now.
I did something as host, Jen, and I don't know what I did to make myself thank you.
You did something?
I did something. Lorena, that's so powerful. And it's such a wonderful example of when an author's words bring a story to life in such a unique way and just bring it off the page.
Thank you kindly. That's our job, isn't it?
I can so feel the weight of the chronometer in that story.
Yeah.
It was like I was holding it in my hands the whole time I was reading.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mel.
Yeah.
I think about those things a lot, about the importance, the mana, if you will, that we imbue into the things that we make as human beings, and how that echoes through history. I mean, it's not just this particular chronometer. I mean, look at all of the things that we've created, and then some person 100 years from now, 1,000 years from now, comes across that piece, and suddenly you're transported back in time. There's a communication that happens. You know, civilizations rise and fall. We wage wars, but what's left is the art, the architecture, and the literature. That's what's left. That's what civilization is about, and that's what echoes through time.
Oh, that's beautifully said. That's lovely. Well, thank you so much for that lovely reading, Lorena, and thanks for coming on. And thank you for the story. It was
my pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right. We'll hope to see you backstage.
You bet. Talk to you soon.
All right. All right. So our next author is Megan W. Shaw. Hi, Megan. How are you?
Hi. I'm good. I'm good.
So can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I live in Scarborough, Ontario. I'm a literacy enrichment teacher who just became a writer 2 years ago. Yeah, that's about it.
That's a pretty fast track from 2 years to an honorable mention for the Hummingbird. So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, that was my first acceptance. And then I got another one shortly after due to some of Jen's editing for me. So, yeah.
Jen is a great editor. I totally appreciate her work on my books.
I put the axe away. It's tucked out of sight. So
if anyone will find a logical inconsistency or geometric flaw in your writing, it is Jen.
I'm sorry.
Okay. Oh, it's
I'm so grateful.
better you find it
So
when you
grateful.
do than after it's published.
Well, that's just the tweezers then. It doesn't need the axe. Congratulations, Megan.
Thank you.
Yeah. So this this story, The Realm of Shadows, like I said, was honorable mention in the Hummingbird Flash Fiction Contest. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Sure. This story is pretty important to me for a couple reasons. One is that my writers group students really helped me fix it up. Yeah, I have one student, two students in that class. One of them is very into precise language, and the other one is into like dark, spooky concepts. And they really helped me make this one sound the way it sounds. And then the other reason it's important to me is it's about ghosts. It's about second chances when it comes to saying goodbye to those who've lost. So this story was very much in memory of my mentor, who had passed away a couple of years before I wrote it.
Oh, and I think that's lovely that you enlist your students' help in editing, and I think that's a really important lesson in that when we're writing, we're all students. You know, we can take advice from everybody. Nobody is the master. Nobody is the perfect writer, who can do it all. Everybody needs an editor, and everybody needs readers. Because without readers, we aren't writers. So we're writing things, but if there's no one to read it, it doesn't matter. So I think that's lovely that, you, the teacher, are getting support from your students.
It's a really excellent program. Yeah, we really are all equal members in that class.
Oh, that's lovely. Well, can you give us a little taste?
Yeah, I'll give you just a tiny bit because it's incredibly short and I don't want to read the whole thing and give it all away. The Realm of Shadows. It is important to get there before the sun. If you are already present, already a part of the landscape, you will cause no disruptions. Wait in stillness until the sun has crested the hill and the forest accepted the end of night. Then you may walk, but move slowly, carefully. Sway as the branches and skip as the creek. Do not run unless you are swift enough to blend with the wind. Any motion unnatural to the forest will frighten them, and your chance will be lost. Look to the shadows of the stones first, the ones that are low enough, smooth enough to rest upon, the ones that are high enough, rough enough to climb. The trees will take longer. Look to the shadows of those steps and boulders that dawn reveals, and speak the words of one who has passed. They must be of one who has frequented these woods, and they must be words that have meaning here. That is when you will start to see ghosts.
Oh, that is a lovely place to start, or to stop, rather.
So beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so evocative and melodic yet creepy.
Wonderful.
All right. So one of the other events I wanted to mention, since we have so many authors from Ontario here for this issue, is that we are going to be at Word on the Street Toronto this year. We have a booth there. And, I'd like to invite all our authors who are Toronto-based or, that sort of part of Ontario, or even if you're traveling to Toronto, to come by, spend a bit of time at the booth, do some signings. So I've talked with the organizers, and they said if we want to set up our own signings at the booth, we can. So you can come by and spend some time, sign a couple of copies of the issue for people, and just enjoy the festival. So yeah, I hope we can get a lot of our Ontario contingent out there. All right, just waiting. I told Renee 12:20, and we are not quite there yet. So I'll let you go, Megan, and hang out backstage, and we will see you afterwards if you're still around. Oh, there's Renee. Hi, Renee. So before we announce the next honorable mention, or sorry, not honorable mention, the first runner-up, I just want to remind everyone again to take part in the Hummingbird Prize for Flash Fiction. You too could have a story like Megan's in the pages of the magazine. And let's do a prize draw before we go any further. Again, if you haven't put your name down in the door prizes in Discord, do it now. You've got a good chance of winning. Oops, I'm losing my dice. And that was number one again, Susan Peters. So the prize this time we are doing cash coupons, essentially, for the bookstore. So you're going to get a $2 coupon for anything in the bookstore. Again, Susan, if you want to pass that on to somebody else, feel free. And other people who are listening, get into Discord, get your name in there. Right now, you've got about a 1 in 12 chance of winning. Get it up to 1 in 20. That's still pretty good odds. And again, a reminder that with the launch code, let me put that launch code up again. Turtles all the way down. You can get 20% off anything in the store. So, a reminder, this was our shortlist for the Magpie Award. And Kevin Spence's big German dialect word clankingly inserted here has already been taken out of the running by winning the second runner-up. So we should have a drum roll here, really. But
not there yet.
Would you like to announce? Let me remove this so we can see you more. Would you like to announce our first runner-up?
My pleasure and my honor to do so. It's my great privilege right now, live at the 2022 Magpie Poetry Award announcement during this launch. The first runner-up is the poem Harvest by Cara Waterfall. And comments that I've written for this fabulous poem are: mastery of the short line tercet gives us Van Gogh, or some people pronounce it Van Gogh. Sorry about that. Van Gogh in a poetic monologue. The language is rich with painting and image, of course, but also the claiming of the confessional I, which can be tricky, is really beautifully here enlivened by the strength of sound and rhythm. So congratulations to the poem and the poet.
And we've got Cara here.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm so honored. Thank you so much.
Well, congratulations, Cara.
Thank you.
So we were going to bring bring you on at the end to read both of them, but since you're here now, would you like to read from Harvest?
Yeah, absolutely, sure.
Okay, wonderful.
Okay. Harvest. And then there's a quote from Vincent van Gogh. We who live by bread. Oh, sorry. We who live by bread. My apologies, I'm using paper. Are we not ourselves very much like wheat to be reaped when we are ripe? My brain is the bright apparatus which uncloisters me, and the wheat field my lacuna. I master the clockwise cut, the windrow and impasto of their furrows, the mustard tempo amid the lavender shadows of cypresses and the lesser ones of sickle and scythe. I left the asylum because I could no longer operate from the poverty of memory. Now I embank my easel in the grasses and rope my canvas tight. I paint with the roving eye of the sower and tip the scales toward blonde, closer to the earth in the seed's sermon and scintilla of grain. Now each bushel froths gold and torches ground. Some believe foxglove be the amaranth of my imagination. In truth, what preaches to my easel is the wheat field. It ripens and I reap, the halo and swale that dampens my canvas, this corona servicing out of the mahoganies and greens. I am witness to these grasses, rain or shine, and rest a summer solstice for myself from the hearth of these sheaves until the brain's bright orchard extinguishes itself. Thank you. Thanks, Renee. Thank you so much.
Thank you. That was lovely.
Thank you.
And
I'm really honored. Thank you so much.
And I just wanted to say, I just didn't realize how appropriate our background was for this poem with the sort of wildflowers.
It really is.
It's a gorgeous poem. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I think you're so welcome, so richly deserved. I think what I really was struck by, as I'm guessing Jen as well, is she curated these for me to select from. Again, much thanks to her very discerning eye. What I really like that you did is, there have been a lot written about this painter and his life. And so to find the new and to do so using this discipline of these tercet lines, people will have heard them, but they won't have seen them like I did. I love the way that sound and form operated together. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, Renee, and thank you, Jen. Again, I'm really honored, and I was very pleased to read the poem today as well. Thank you.
And I should add that Cara has this is not the first time she's received either an honorable mention or shortlist or something for the Magpie. So congratulations. It's so lovely to keep seeing your poems come through our inbox, even if we don't know they're yours when they come through.
Thank you so much. I consider it a rite of passage. So every year I enter, and I enjoy entering, and I love reading the poems afterwards. So thank you again.
Yeah, and if anybody wants to pick up an issue with Cara's poetry in it, the previous issue, the winter issue, had the poem Vessel in it, which was lovely. That one just got me right here.
And I know I keep plugging the blog, but also do visit the blog because Cara kindly gifted us with another poem, and that appears in its entirety on the blog. So please do check it out.
Yes, and no, keep plugging the blog because you put a lot of work into that blog, and people should know it's out there. Every Tuesday, there's an excerpt or a poem or a bit of artwork from the magazine. Every Thursday, there's a throwback Thursday to some past issue, and sometimes we get poets sending us new poems, even poets that we've published like 5 years ago or 8 years ago. So it's always worth keeping your eye on the blog. And Jen curates and writes that so beautifully. So
thank you. It's an honor. I adore our contributors. It's wonderful to celebrate them. It's just an incredible community of authors and artists and poets, and it's wonderful. So thank you.
Can I just say one thing? I think you are so supportive of your writers and your poets, and I just really appreciate that you're always there with an ear to listen and to support us. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank
an
you.
honor.
Thank you. Yeah. And yeah, Jen is wonderful author liaison.
This is a great launch. I'm really enjoying this.
All right. Before I let you go, let's do another door prize. This one is number 2. Who is number 2?
I think
it's
it
Mary.
might be Mary, but she has a fancy title for
Maria
her.
Elena des de San Juan. That's because that's Mary Rykov, our proofreader and sometimes copy editor, who is also a poet, who's been in the magazine several times, is currently in Puerto Rico, researching, on a Canada Council grant to research her family history for her current work. So that's why you may see comments in Spanish from her. She doesn't proofread in Spanish. She proofreads in English. Don't worry. Well, thank you so much, Renee, and thanks, Cara. And we'll come back at the end of the program for the winner.
The excitement will build. Thanks, everyone. Congratulations again to all. And yay, Pulplit. Fabulous launch. See you later.
All right. Okay. So, I didn't warn our next author to come up, so I don't have anyone on deck. Oh,
well, I mean, I can just speak to having had the opportunity to working with Doug on this story. He submitted this phenomenal story, and in the time working on it with him, I felt a deepening connection to the narrative behind the narrative, and I'm delighted that he can join us and read from it.
And here he is. So,
hello.
Hey, Doug.
So, yeah, please welcome Douglas Smith. And Doug is not. This is not his first time here at Pulplit. We had him for issue 12 way back in 2016. That was there was the issue there.
You have the best covers, I have to say.
Yeah, thank you.
It's a gorgeous cover. I love it.
Thank you. I have to say it is my favorite part of the job is finding the covers for the magazine. It's just
when I do it well.
Well, I love them. I just love the artwork so much. And that issue 12 one was Melissa Mary Duncan, who is a staple with us. She did our first cover, The Beer Fairy. She did, and she's done several issues. We have her coming up again for, I think it's the autumn issue, or is it the winter? Autumn, I think. And she also did the covers for my books. So she was lovely. And again, Herman Lau, we've had 2 now from him, and we hope to have more. So, Doug, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Wow. I've been writing for over 20 years, I guess. I started with short fiction, and I still do the occasional short story. Speculative fiction, although the story that's in this issue is one of my few mainstream stories. I've won the Aurora Award, which is a Canadian award for speculative fiction. I've won that 3 times and been a finalist for a number of others. I've got 2 English collections out and 1 collection of fantasy stories that was translated and published in France. I have 1 urban fantasy novel published, and I just finished a trilogy for a new urban fantasy series, none of which are published, and I'm going to start getting them out this year. First one should be out late fall, I hope.
Oh, cool. So you're a pretty prolific author. So it's always nice to see something come in the inbox from you. But it was really a treat this time to see contemporary fiction, because part of our mandate is to publish authors outside their usual boxes. So we've published fantasy from you before, so it was like I said, it was a treat to see something new and original that nobody else has. And this is a deeply personal story for you. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah, well, first of all, I'll say it was a treat that you bought it as well, so, and to have it published. I love pulp literature. Yeah, this story, it's fictional, but it draws from the birth of our second son, and the time he spent immediately after being born and being rushed down to hospital for sick kids, and he spent his first few weeks in sick kids. And I tell people he had his first operation in 3 hours after birth, and another one 3 days later, another one 3 weeks later. So I'm choking up even now. He had a rough start to his life, but it ended well. And this is a story I wrote. It was at least a decade after all of that. I needed at least that much distance between the reality of events and being able to put it to paper. But I know when I was editing it with Jen, who did a great job, just super to work with.
Thank you.
It was tough having to go back and rereading sections and coming up with some different words and working on the different edits. It was tough immersing myself in those days again.
We're so grateful that you were able to share the story.
Yeah, and we really appreciate the number of changes that you did make, which are not easy to do on a story that is based in reality. So we really do appreciate it, and we I think it's a beautiful story, and I think it turned out really, really well.
Oh, thank you.
So can you manage a short passage?
I think I can. Hang on. Okay. The balance. Neon light glared off white walls in a visual cacophony of primary colors. Big plastic balls, a slide, toys, stuffed animals. Jack rolled over, disoriented until he remembered where he was, sleeping on a cot in a playroom at Sick Kids. A hospital for sick children, Ward B. The nurse stood over him. Fear grabbed Jack and pulled him awake. What's wrong? Is Ben okay? The nurse smiled. Ben's fine, Mr. Fraser. He's crying, though. I think he's hungry. I checked him, and he doesn't need changing yet. Jack struggled to focus on her. Brown hair pulled straight back from her round face and round glasses. Jenny. She was great with Ben. Hell, they were all great. Thanks, Jen. Be right there, he mumbled, dry-mouthed and raspy, his heart still pounding. Jenny smiled and left. He rolled over. The cot sagged in the middle and smelled of the sweat of strangers, even through the fresh sheets. He checked his phone. 2:35 a.m. Groaning, he pulled on his runners and tucked his black T-shirt into his jeans and stepped out into the darkened corridor. Antiseptic cleaner on mopped floors fought the ubiquitous odor of medicines and soiled diapers. Ward 4B was the neurosurgery ward. Ben had been here for his 2 weeks of life, except for an initial stay in the neonatal ICU. Jack slept over most nights now and would until Ben was over his recent apnea trouble. His running shoes squeaked on the wet floor. Apnea, yet another medical term he'd learned over his time here, along with spina bifida, peritoneal shunt, compressed trachea, and too many more. He wondered when any sort of equilibrium would return to his life. Ahead, the nurse's station was an island of light, his gut clenched with a sudden jab of memory. A month before Ben had been born, Kathy's doctor told them Ben wouldn't survive the birth. Kathy had carried him that last month, believing that. But Ben had survived. With Kathy still in recovery, an ambulance had rushed Ben and Jack 30 miles to Sick Kids. That day, Jack stood at this same station, more alone than he'd ever felt in his life, while white-coated doctors hovered, waiting for him to sign forms he couldn't understand, forms to allow strangers to cut open his newborn son. The pen in his hand that day felt like a dead weight, as cold and heavy as his sudden life and death responsibility. After, he swore never to feel that powerless again. The next time, Ben would have someone on his side, someone who understood. Maybe I'll stop there.
That was lovely. That was, and yeah, I can hear the emotion in your voice, and it's not an easy story to read, and I'm sure it was much harder to write, but it's a worthwhile story, and
it has a happy ending.
I was going to say, read to the end.
Yeah, it is. That's why I say it is worth reading. Yeah, and not someone who's not a parent, or someone who's doesn't have a family member who's gone through this is probably never going to know exactly what it's like, but this does give a little window into it. So we're grateful for that. So thank you.
Oh, you're quite welcome. We had friends and neighbors who also had a child born with disabilities about the same time. I remember talking with them, and they said the same thing. He said, unless you've actually experienced it, even if you're a parent, you don't really know what it's like.
Yeah. Well, again, we're grateful. So, and
thank you for publishing it.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Well, hang out backstage, and hopefully we'll see you at the end of the show. Thanks again for coming on. And we'll hope to see some more writing from you in the future.
I'm sure you will. Thanks, all.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye. All right. So now I'm going to bring on our newest member of the Pulp Lit team. So Sierra Louie just joined us a couple weeks ago in our search for some more people to help take on the novel publishing side of things. But Sierra, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi. I've joined Pulp very, very recently, so I'm really happy to be here, and it's been great so far. I have a background in media studies and creative writing, which I'm just finishing up right now. And yeah, I like to work on poetry, fiction, comics. That's what I love.
Yeah. And you're an artist as well, and a writer as well, right?
Yes, yeah.
So, yeah. Well, welcome aboard. Welcome to, it's nothing like throwing you in at the deep end, putting you on camera. So you're here to talk about one of the poems. Derek Webster wanted to join us and wasn't able to. So can you tell us a little bit about this poem and about Derek?
Yeah, sure. So the poem is Self-Doubt with Luke Birth. And Derek, he is somebody who's written lots of poetry and prose, and it's appeared in many publications. The ones that he has highlighted include the Malahat Review, the New Quarterly, Boston Review, the Walrus, and of course, many more. He has an MFA from Washington University in St. Louis and currently lives in Montreal, and is also the founding editor of Maisonneuve magazine. And
yeah, and can you read us a bit from it?
Absolutely. It's quite a short poem, but would we
prefer read
the whole thing? Yeah, sure. Okay. Self-Doubt with Luke Birth. The wind lifted, blew me back to a corner of your field, where I grew to awkward height. If you seek my gnarled limbs, you'll become master of all, your little bum spies, until winter comes to strip your world. I am all that's left, my appetites don't rest. King of cheap rent, poor man's glory, I am the soiled arm of self-doubt, reaching, miles deep, into your eyes to mineralize your name. If you were smart, you'd leave me to wizen upon life's brown plain. Sad rutabaga, it's you, forever on the threshold, inviting me in. And that's it.
Thank you. I just realized how appropriate our background with the field flowers is. So for anyone who doesn't know, Rutebeuf was a medieval French poet, and he was a coarse poet. So he was considered he wasn't highborn. He was fairly lowborn, and his poetry was considered sort of very, very basic and earthy. But if anyone would like to hear more of Rutebeuf, there's a beautiful Joan Baez song using one of his lyrics. It came out like in her 1968 album or something. So look up Joan Baez and Rutebeuf and you'll hear this beautiful song. And I wish Derek Webster could be here to talk about it, but you read that beautifully, Sierra, so thank you.
Thank you. Poetry is nerve-wracking to read other people's words, it's very personal.
It is nerve-wracking.
It is. And stay with us because I'm going to bring on another one of our editors now. Hi, Brooklyn.
Hello.
So a lot of you know Brooklyn from backstage. She's back there managing the green room, and but she was on our last launch as well. So do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I've been with Pulp for almost a year and a half now, and really enjoying reading all these wonderful authors and learning a lot more about magazine production and a little bit of the publishing side of things. I also have a background in English and creative writing, so it's kind of a really good fit for me. And I'm coming in from Vancouver Island, where it's somewhat overcast. I saw a little bit of sunshine. I'm hoping it returns.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, honestly.
It's rain. It's full on rain here in Langley. So yeah. So you're here today to talk about the next story, and let me just bring that up. So tell us a little bit about this one.
I'm reading Respawn by Michelle Barker. It's a very fast-paced, fun story, but has a lot of very thoughtful undertones, which I think, themes, I guess, and it makes for a really, really great read. Michelle Barker is the author and an award-winning author of the novel The House of 1,000 Eyes, and also the historical picture book A Year of Borrowed Men. Her newest novel, My Long List of Impossible Things, came out in 2020 with Annick Press. Her fiction, nonfiction, and poetry has been published in literary reviews around the world, and she holds an MFA in creative writing from UBC. Respawn won an honorable mention in the 2021 Jack White Storytellers Award. And that's the one I'll be reading.
All right.
Okay. Respawn. Returning to his childhood home always made Mervyn feel like he was aging in reverse. Respawn, his son Jamie would shout whenever they came to visit, which was not often enough, according to Mervyn's mother, though too often for Mervyn's liking. But life was nothing like the video games Mervyn and Jamie played together. You didn't get a chance to start over, no matter how much you needed one. That morning, he'd gotten a jump on weekend traffic out of the city and had arrived at his parents' home before supper. It was mid-spring and there was still daylight. The lawn was trimmed, the garden weeded, and someone's sprinkler tick-ticked in the distance. Theirs was the nicest home on the street, as his parents liked to remind him. But these days, his dad was getting too old for climbing ladders, and there were eaves to clean out and moss growing on the roof. Why call a professional who knew how to do this stuff properly when you could get your son to drive up 5 hours and bungle the job? He parked his old VW in front and braced himself for a snarky comment about the car. The bazoo, Jamie called it. It leaked in the rain and smelled like spoiled milk. The engine light constantly dared Mervyn to blink. His mother appeared at the door wearing an apron. What? No Nancy? No Jamie? She frowned at the car. The way she favored her right side meant her hip was bothering her. Hello to you too. Mervyn plodded up the cement path with his bag and gave her a hug. The scent of pot roast hung in the air and made his stomach growl. He would have happily brought Jamie, but that would have also meant bringing his wife. Besides, the visit with Nancy were getting awkward. You could hide a failing marriage for the length of one supper, but doing it for a whole weekend was harder. I made up your old room for Jamie, his mother said, but you go ahead and stay there. You can be a teenager again. Jesus, that was the last thing he wanted. He slipped off his scuffed brown shoes and poked his head into the living room, where his dad was watching baseball with the volume up, glasses perched low on his nose. His parents were getting older. It startled him to see it. Back in the city, every day was a repeat of the one before until it felt like time never moved forward. And yet here, time's thumbprints were everywhere. Mervyn took the carpeted stairs up. Even though his mother had aired his old room, there was an underlying musky smell to it that took him back to popping pimples and wearing too much Old Spice. His reach for the top certificates hung on the wall, and a Star Wars quilt covered the bed. Were you a nerd in high school? Jamie had once asked. Not all his questions had been easy to laugh off. Another time he'd asked Mervyn what he'd wanted to be when he grew up. I think that's maybe a good spot to end it there.
Thanks so much, Brooklyn. That was great. And we should add that, Michelle Barker has been published in the magazine before, and that time she actually won the Storytellers Award with MVP. So you can check that out in issue 18. We've got a lot of repeat authors this time,
Yeah.
which is lovely because it's lovely to have the same authors back. And it's lovely to have new authors as well. So we have another repeat author coming in now. And this is the winner of the Raven Short Story Contest for 2021. So please welcome Laura Kuhlmann, who is coming to us from Maryland, I believe, formerly in Toronto and many other places.
Many. I'm a globetrotter.
Yes. Laura's has been shortlisted before. I believe it was a Hummingbird shortlist before, or honorable mention before, and we published that in previous issue. Oh, in fact, I might have there's your reminder again. Enter the Hummingbird. So yeah, we published Laura in issue 29, winter 2021. That was, you get the ones with the animals on the covers, it seems. The goats with sword and the stack of turtles. And this one, this time, Jar of Marmalade was the winner, with the judge being Leo X. Robertson, who we have also published a couple of times. So Laura, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about your story?
Yes, so it's funny that I'm now on a cover with turtles because just a couple of weeks ago we were walking in a natural park around Maryland, and there were like rows and rows of turtles sitting, sunning themselves on fallen trees by the lake. It was adorable.
But you've never come across a goat with a bloody sword? That hasn't happened?
That hasn't happened yet. Or what was it last edition? Was it the kitten with the...
Oh yeah, space cat.
I haven't seen that either yet. Yeah.
I like animals.
Oh yeah, I'm an animal lover. I turn goofy when I see people with pets walking around me. But right now, like you said, I'm in Maryland. Prior to this, I was working in Toronto as a researcher, and then I decided I like writing too much, and now I'm a medical writer in Maryland. And so during the day, I sit at a computer and write for the National Cancer Institute, and in the evening, if I still have energy, I try to write fiction. And I've tackled a couple of genres. I like to write in literary fiction, some speculative occasionally, and crime fiction as well, depending on what's the next deadline.
So tell us a little bit about this one.
Yeah, this one has some very strong roots in reality. So the main character of this story is actually pretty much my pediatrician. I grew up in Romania, and the time that I'm referring to is the 1970s Romania, when um, uh, let's just say the economy was in a very weird situation. There was a strong push to industrialize the country as much as possible, but a lot of the people, half the population still lived in the countryside. They were pretty poor. Most people who lived in the countryside couldn't afford a car. They would be coming to the cities if they had an emergency by horse and buggy practically. But at the same time, there was a strong push to also get as many women as possible into industry, into high technical and very important jobs like doctors. So my pediatrician was a very impressive woman because she was known in the hospital as Mother Teresa. She was very harsh with the nurses if she felt that they weren't paying close enough attention to the kids. So she could be very, very harsh with part of the medical team if she felt like they weren't doing their jobs, but she would be getting very attached to the patients, and sometimes she would even cry when a patient got severely ill. And she was famous at one point for treating very aggressively any potential infection, because she had lost her only daughter to an infection that was probably treated too late. And the happy ending of it is that in real life, she did adopt a child eventually who also became a doctor. The last time I visited her, she wasn't practicing anymore, and she told me the story of how once she had a patient whom she suspected either had diabetes or was in a low sugar coma, and the hospital lab was closed for the day. She had to figure it out somehow, which was it, because the treatments were completely contradictory. Like, you couldn't, if you treated it for one thing, you would make the other thing worse if you got it wrong. So I started the story with her having to solve that problem without a lab. And then the second part of the story is her coming back to her husband, to her family, well, to her husband, and mourning the child she no longer has.
All right. Can you read us a few paragraphs?
Absolutely. So I'm going to start with the second half. After she returns from the hospital and she gets home, the room is smelling of incense because she had just had a remembrance ceremony for her daughter, and it's morning and she wasn't supposed to stay so long at the hospital. So here it is. I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep, so I headed for the front room where I sometimes saw patients, hoping David would sleep for a couple more hours. When are you going to remember that I need you too? I jumped and turned. My husband was watching me from the threshold of our bedroom. The bags under his eyes told me his had also been a sleepless night. We had an emergency. You couldn't at least call me back? I used all my connections in the party to get a phone installed, and you only use it to talk to your patients. David, I can't just ignore them at the end of my shift. Why couldn't I tell him how much I appreciated his effort to get us a phone? Some people waited years to be allowed one, and people like us, people who inherited a home, were least likely to get approved. I still didn't understand why the party had allowed David to keep the house. Maybe it was because I came from poverty, thus alleviating his sin of being born to a well-to-do middle-class family. Maybe it was because I often rushed in the middle of the night to treat the son of the local party secretary. David stepped away from the door, leaving room for me to pass. Come to bed. I'm not tired. Maybe I'll read something first. Stop reading her chart, please. He looked at me. It wouldn't have mattered if they had given her antibiotics earlier or not. That's not true, and you know it, I hissed. We can't bring Eliza back. Come to bed. There was no point. What he wanted, I couldn't give. I didn't answer, didn't move. He sighed and closed the door.
The silence that followed told me he was still waiting, close to the door, hoping I'd heed his call. Instead, I walked to the end of the hallway to our daughter's bedroom. David had allowed me to keep it as it had been a year ago, the bed freshly made, the desk stacked with Eliza's notebooks. Her school photo hung on the wall. In it, Eliza wore the standard issue uniform, the checkered white and blue shirt with a dark blue apron. Her hair was short. I hadn't allowed her to grow it. We had constant fights about it. To atone for my decision, I had allowed her to wear those ridiculous pom-poms on her hairband, 2 cheap white flowers that looked like crumbling ears. Eliza stared at the camera, her thin lips frozen in an uncomfortable smile. Her hand gripped a pen at an odd angle. My daughter was left-handed. The teachers forced her to write with her right. Oh, the cries until she agreed to play their game in the classroom. At home, she always wrote with her left. My beautiful, stubborn daughter. I lay down on top of the yellow comforter, buried my face in her pillow. It smelled of fresh laundry, all scent of her removed. The smell of vomit was also removed. Her last hours in this room had been a hot torture. I should have pressed the doctor to admit us to the hospital sooner, should have fed her antibiotics myself when I suspected meningitis and not waited for a confirmation. This won't happen to another parent, I promised myself. Antibiotics first, as soon as I suspect a bacterial infection. Treating the son of the party secretary had its perks. Party members can travel abroad. I could ask for medicine not available in Romania. I stashed the expensive drugs in my daughter's room for those patients I thought needed it. The party couldn't control who received it. This time, I was in control. David wanted to redecorate the room, plan for a new child. I hadn't told him we had missed that window, that my body would no longer cooperate with our desires to have another baby. I fell asleep on top of Eliza's bed, unsure about the honesty I owed my husband. I'll stop it here.
Thank you. That's a powerful story. And it's just the right balance of combining the sort of the medical mystery and that, you know, the problem that she has to solve, but with also, you know, the emotional backstory. Yeah.
Yes. Fortunately, it had a happy ending.
Yeah. And I think it tugged at our judges' heartstrings as well. So thank you, Laura. Congratulations yet again on this win, and I hope we'll see some more stories from you.
Thank you.
So I'll let you head off to Discord, and I'll bring our next author on. And we have Hannah Van Didden. So Hannah was the runner-up for the Raven last year. Let me just bring that slide up again. Oops. With the incredibly funny short story, Gerald Bantam Says Goodbye. Funny and irreverent and
I'm glad you saw it that way.
It's wonderfully disturbing.
It is wonderful.
Yeah, it scared my daughter.
Oh.
And also Hannah is also a multiple times published author, because her story The Lion was in our summer issue in 2020. That one was also funny and irreverent, and it also involved a fair bit of death.
Yeah.
But again, Hannah is one of these authors who often makes the shortlist, or almost always makes the shortlist whenever she enters a contest. And you know, this one came up first runner up, and like I said, it's always delightful to see your stories in the shortlist, or just in the general slush pile when you send them in there too. So yeah. And by the way, Hannah is joining us from Australia at some ungodly hour in the morning. We We're very grateful
That's
for
almost godly.
that. So, whereabouts in Australia are you?
I'm in Perth, the northern beaches of Perth. So, yeah, it's about 4 a.m. here.
4 a.m.
Oh,
yeah.
What a trooper you are.
Such an honor to be a part of today's launch. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for being up in the wee hours of the morning for it. Do appreciate it. So, what can you tell us about this story?
I had a sneaking suspicion you might actually ask that question, and I hadn't prepared anything. I should have probably thought ahead. But I guess you've already mentioned its irreverence. My feeling was that Western society is becoming, in many ways very consumeristic. Not everyone, but in many pockets. And I thought one of the things that we still hold dear are our loved ones, and also life and death. But what if we didn't have to say goodbye to our loved ones exactly? What would that mean? And I'll leave that to you as the reader.
All right. Can you give us a bit of a reading?
Yeah, I'd love to. Thank you. So it says, Gerald Banton says goodbye. After 57 years of not following the crowd, Gerald Banton succumbed. Mrs. Amanda Erickson pushed him to it in the end. They ran into each other in the cheese section of the local deli and took their conversation to the counter. You know, Gerald, she said, peering over those purple-rimmed spectacles that otherwise hung from the clear plastic chain under her jowls. You don't have to say no just to be different. She has the point. Evan, the deli owner, grinned at them from behind the service counter, his dark hair caught up in a slick that appeared to have leaked into his navy apron. He scanned Gerald's paper-covered selections, and thin fingers flourished around the payment amount on the LCD display. It gives you more of the good life with a loved one. You loved your wife, yes? Gerald gathered up his Edam and mortadella and nodded an emphatic goodbye. Behind his polite smile, he was tired. He was exhausted by his neighbours' relentless demonstrations of cheer. At the shops, walking their critters, rolling their front lawns into submission, in the constant company of their loved ones. He was lonely. Stella had been their social planner, and with her passing, the kids' visits had slowed. But Daniel, Molly's unspeaking Bo, and Cara all came home for Christmas. They made not a sound as they processed the sight of their dead mother on her favourite chair. Then Molly jangled a bejewelled arm around her father's shoulders. Look at you, keeping up with modern trends. I didn't think you were going to, said Daniel. Cara, who was the youngest and most like him, shook her head. How could you, she whispered. It was what your mother wanted, Gerald replied. I like, Molly said. This way we'll always have her with us, right? That was when Cara ran sobbing into her old room, which, as she was about to discover, had been refurbished as a shrine for her late mother. When a man in Texas killed and stuffed his parents, the incident invoked a worldwide debate and temporary ban on all stuffings. Taxidermists were up in arms, as were those who recognized people stuffing as an emerging market. They wrote letters, picketed houses of parliament, commissioned thought pieces, and psychologists wrote papers about the many issues that could be postponed or resolved by allowing an alive person to keep their loved one within the family unit after death. Children could air grievances without the parent answering back, or they could find catharsis in enacting something like murder, except that it wasn't murder because you can't re-kill a person. And a parent never need feel the loss of a child because they would always have them there, preserved. Lawmakers and ethicists cited composting bags and the circle of life in conceding that a non-living, once-living thing was indeed dead and gone, and redefined a live thing as alive. Dead things could be stuffed then, as so long as the alive persons benefiting from the stuffing did not cause the once-living thing to die. Gerald had watched all of this unfold and refold on the evening news, with Stella by his side the year before she died. That's one thing I never want to see here, Gerald had scoffed. Don't be so quick to judge, Jerry, Stella said. Just imagine it, keeping our family together, maybe even our community. It's crazy. I'd have you stuffed. You would not, I forbid it. When you're dead, I can do with you what I like. If I want you stuffed, you'll be stuffed. You'd really do that? She'd smiled in her wicked, teasing way, and he'd sulked for hours after, even though no such practice had reached their neighbourhood. Not at that time. It was months before their street got its first stuffy, or stuffy, as they came to be known. Thank you.
Yeah, it's awesome.
It really is. I love Stella.
Thanks so much for publishing it. It's such an honor.
Oh, Jen, you're muted.
Sorry, Jen, we can't hear you.
Sorry, here I am talking with my mic off. That it just gets better and better. So yeah, it gets darker and more humorous as the story goes on. I love the stuffies. So if you want to find out what happens to Gerald and Della, and who wins out in the end, you'll have to read the issue, which you can get at 20% off in our bookstore with the spring launch code, Turtles All the Way Down. I also want to let everyone know that the book is also available on Amazon. So if you prefer to buy it online, you can do that. And the price on Amazon is pretty much equivalent to what you would get with the 20% off. It's $2.99 US, which is about $3.99 Canadian. So again, it works out to about the same. So however you want to get your hands on the issue, I strongly recommend getting your hands on the issue. All right. Thank you, Hannah. And I'll let you head back to Discord now. And while I bring on our next guest. And all right. Oops. There we have. So, hi, Nancy.
Hello. What a wonderful event. My God.
Oh, look at that. Look at your beautiful artwork behind you.
Gorgeous. Thank you. Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
No, the honor is ours. I am. So for people who don't know, Hurricane Nancy has been doing cartoons since the 60s. She is cited as an influence by Trina Robbins, of all people. So who's a big hero of mine. So that makes you doubly a hero of mine.
She's a big hero of mine. She's wonderful.
Yeah. And your style is just unique and immediately identifiable. So can you tell us a little bit about your cartoons and how you developed your style and what makes them come out of your pen?
Yes, I can. You know, one of the things about making art, any art, is the ability to look at life and really, really observe. And then you take that observation and as a being, you create. You can make a poem. I make pictures and they just flow because I'm so interested in life. I love people. It's fabulous. You know, and what they create. So for me, I always have a picture going. I never know what's going to be at the end of it when I start it. And yeah. So does that answer your question?
That's a beautiful answer. And that is so insightful. It's true. Like anything, to make good art, you really have to observe. You really have to see. And whether it's whatever the medium, whether it's printed word or coming out of pen or brush, or whether it's, you know, performance art, it's that act of seeing first that turns it into something new and original and beautiful.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. It's like I can see the beauty in most people. And like you, I love animals, I love plants, I love architecture, I love to travel, I love to experience. You know, you can't be afraid of life. I mean, gotta live it and then create with it. Because if you're not afraid of life, then you don't have to attack it and destroy it. You can contribute to it by being a creator. My way is making cartoons. You know, I love it.
Wow. Words of wisdom, really.
Thank you. Well, you guys have given so many beautiful words of wisdom today in this event. It's just been wonderful for me to be among other. Yeah.
Well, I have to tell you, when you first approached us and said, would we like any of your cartoons? And we looked, and it's like, how do we choose? It took a long time to, you know, they're all so amazing. And there's some examples on the wall, but I've put some up here in the stream. So I'm just going to bring up a little slideshow here. These are the ones you'll see in the issue itself. These are the 6 we chose. And, you know, so we started with Turtle, and it just goes so well with our cover, right? Because we've got the black tortoise kowtows on the cover, and then we start off your collection with this turtle holding up all the animals on its back.
It's great.
And that one's a fairly recent one, I believe.
Yeah, that's very recent. The next one is older, and then the other one is closer to Turtle, but not quite.
Yeah. So, and then we thought the next one we chose is entitled Everyone's Got an Opinion, which just seems so, even though it's older, it just seems so appropriate this year, right? It's just
absolutely,
and it just does represent that sort of chaos of opinions coming left, right, and center all the time. And I love this expression of the giraffe.
I feel that way sometimes when I try to look at the news and get some information about life, and I go, I'm going to say something, oy vey.
Yes, absolutely. Well, and then that's why we chose the mandala for handling stress to follow up that one. After we've been bombarded by everyone's opinions, we just kind of need that.
Thank you.
And I like what's in there. So you've got teddy bears and animals and women and flowers, and it's just like it is a lovely thing to focus on. So how do you choose the images to put in these?
You know, I start with an idea and say, pick up the pencil and start drawing. And then I start drawing and I go, oh, this is different than what I thought of. And I keep drawing and I keep drawing and I keep drawing. And what happens is it flows. You know, beings are creative. We love to create. And the adventure of creating is discovery. Because by the time I get to the end of the picture that I thought would be a woman breastfeeding her baby, I get Mandela for handling stress.
Right.
And I go, okay, but part of it is being in the moment, being in present time, and being alive.
Mm.
And then art flows.
That's lovely. Yeah. I love it when it does flow.
Me too. And the killer of that is to start correcting yourself before you finish.
Yeah.
I don't do a lot of correction. I just, okay, well, that was a mistake, but maybe I can use it. Yeah. Okay.
That's wonderful. And that's good advice for writers as well, is to not start doing corrections in your first draft. Don't worry if the words are misspelled, if the sentences are clunky, you know, just keep writing. Let it all come out. And then you can tidy it up and, you know, make it presentable afterwards.
Absolutely.
And then this one doesn't have a title attached to it. But I believe the title is We Can Work It Out.
That's what it was.
Yeah. Which, thank you, because every time I see it, then I get the song going through my head, which makes me happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've got this sort of Shiva-like four-armed person here, you know, black and white and gray, you know, stippled gray, and yeah, so there's this implication that, you know, we can make this all work, all these things together.
I agree wholeheartedly.
And yeah, and the person is balancing a house and a car and the world right against their heart. So it's lovely.
Thank you.
And then we also felt we had to include the mandala for cheerfulness. You have so many mandalas, it was hard to choose, but we thought cheerfulness was important in this day and age.
Absolutely.
And then, of course, we had to end with create despite all odds, because that's what we all have to do. All the poets and writers and artists, we've just got to keep creating.
That is the solution for this planet, per my viewpoint. It's if you put attention on creating wonderful effects, art, music, whatever you're creating, make a garden, raise animals, do something, then you're not going to get into all this destructive, I want to say bullshit, but I will say it.
Yeah, you can say it. We're not on the network.
I know. Yeah. Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Nancy, for sharing your art with us. It's truly an honor to publish it. We had so much fun choosing the ones to publish, and I'm just so delighted to see them in the pages of the magazine.
Thank you so much. As I said, I'm totally honored to be among you wonderful, wonderful people.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
And just, I'm just gonna, I'll keep you on while we do our prize draw and just let you know that we're getting.
Can we plug Nancy's website?
Oh yeah. What is your website, Nancy?
It's hurricanenancy.com.
That's easy enough to find.
Yeah, because I'm Hurricane Nancy. And then there's always this dot and then com.
You go check it out. It's absolutely incredible. You made our selection process just wonderfully difficult. And
yes.
Well, you know you're artists. You know, and you are artists, so it's wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. All right. I'm going to do a prize draw. It keeps falling off the table. There's something to be said about that. Number 3.
Oh, that's Brenda.
Brenda Carr.
Yes.
So again, this one, we're into the cash coupons now. So this is a $10 coupon for whatever you'd like from the store. Or you can pass it on to somebody else. And just so you know, what we'll do is we'll email you the coupons after the launch. And for the 20%, that is available till the end of today. So anybody can use that coupon code for the 20%. And you can stack them up, I believe. I believe it's set up in the shop. So we'll try to get those codes out to you today. So if you want to stack them, you can get your 20% off and then save $10 on top of that. We're just in a generous mood today.
Well, can you remind us again what the deal is with JJ's memoir?
And yes, for JJ's, we're not closing that off. I think we'll just keep it open until he reaches that magic number. But yes, send us a proof of purchase. You can do that by email. You can send it to us on Discord, whether it's a screenshot from your Amazon purchase or if you're buying it, although he won't get the numbers from that as soon as you're buying it from the publisher, whatever your screenshot from your purchase is, send it to us and we'll send you a coupon that you can use for 50% off any JJ Lee issue. And that includes the one, so that's issue 2, issue 7, which was one he did the cover for, which was a Robert Sawyer feature story, issue 8, 17, 24, or 34, or all of them. All right, I'll save the last one, which is a $20 coupon till the very end. So if you have not yet put your name down for the door prize, get into Discord, put your name down there. This is your last chance. And let me just... And I am going to... we can keep you on. Do you want to stay on, Nancy? We can keep you on till...
I love it. I love looking, you know.
I like having your painting, your cartoons up there. On the
My pleasure. Totally.
So I'm just going to, I was going to read a little bit from The Shepherdess, but just for sake of time, I will not. I'll tell you a little bit about this issue, though. Toinette, our heroine, is back in Paris again. She's gone in search of the artisan who made the deadly letter opener, which has a stiletto inside it. And she's on her way to the house of a Dutch artisan. And more danger, more intrigue ensues. So I will leave it at that. But you can see that beautiful, beautiful drawing of Notre Dame by Mel. Thank you, Mel, for illustrating. So lovely.
Jen, it was an honor.
And also just a reminder that, yes, I am getting that 3rd book out. Yes, Mom. Yes, it's coming. I get the most nagging from my mom, but also some from other people as well. But you can buy the first 2 books of my series, Elenia's Song. They're available from our website, from Amazon, from Barnes & Noble, anywhere you buy books, an ebook or print. And summer, we are hoping to get Chorale out. And it is available for pre-order now. And enough about me. So let's bring Renee back on for the announcement of the Magpie winner. So again, so we've eliminated 2, and there are 8 possible poems left. And Renee, would you be so kind as to tell us the winner?
It's my absolute honor, excitement, and privilege to announce the winner for this year's 2020 Magpie Poetry Award with Pulp Lit magazine. And that winner is the poem Grief Body, all one word, lowercase, Grief Body by Cara Waterfall. And I'll just read you a little bit about my analysis and comments, with much thanks to Jen, who did such a great job in curating this exceptional shortlist. Congratulations to everyone on the shortlist. It was a privilege reading these poems. So here we have Grief Body by Cara Waterfall. It is a beautifully constructed palindrome line poem with a haunting atmosphere made possible by precise syntactical construction. They're difficult to do, these kind of poems. The imagery and sound effects arise from strong verbs, which are dense with word associations, and they keep us returning to this lovely elegy that captures our attention very subtly in that mirrored effect of the lines being able to be read forward and back. Quite difficult to do well. And this poem does it, and I felt with echoes that endure. Congratulations to the poet.
Thank you so much. I'm shocked. It's such an honor, and I'm in such good company for this on this shortlist. So wow, I'm so surprised. I wanted to say that I lost someone I loved very much last year, and I wrote this poem when I was seeing it through the lens of that grief. Yeah, I'm so surprised. But thank you so much, Renee. I really appreciate just your insightful commentary, and yeah, thank you.
You're so welcome. Richly deserved. It was a privilege, and all the poems were fabulous. So you are in good company. And it was hard, you know. I had to really spend time on each poem, and I did. And that wasn't the hard part. The hard part was making those decisions. I wish I could have given a bunch of verse, but this is richly deserved. I think it's a very tricky form to manage and to do well, and then to have heart and soul, and clearly your emotions. Grief Body says it all. But I kept coming back to it. I had a short list, of course, as we know, and then I kept coming back, and I did it. One of the things I really loved about so many of the poems this time around, and it's a credit to this magazine, this journal, for attracting such quality, is, you know, I went back to some of the basics. So I went and looked up some of the techniques for writing a palindrome, particularly a line one. And it made me reconsider your poem in light of some of the best that have been written, and what happens when the two stanzas are mirroring each other in a way that doesn't become trite or treacly. And I thought that's what put your poem ahead, that it would have been easy to, well, not easy because it's a difficult form, but the temptation would have been, with the subject matter, grief and mourning, and it's an elegy, isn't it, to slide into something a little too sentimental, bring in those cliches. And somehow I think the form really worked with the subject matter for you. But congratulations.
Thank you so much, Renee. Thank you.
I know folks are going to have an opportunity to hear you read it, Cara. I'm just wondering if you or Renee could speak to what that form is for those that are watching that don't quite know what we're speaking about here.
Well, I'll turn it over to Cara, because I felt I did a little bit, but I didn't want to talk too much. Cara, tell us about why you chose this form, and a little bit about what about the form spoke to you.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's actually the first poem that I've written in that form, and since then I've written another palindrome poem. But basically it's a poem where you take the last line and you start with that, and you kind of, you do it sort of backwards, but you're able to read each line as though it's flowing in the way that it flowed in the first stanza. And I've had like a lot of occasions to think about grief and how it comes in waves. And I feel like, you know, it's a sad poem. it's not that uplifting the way I'm seeing the world, but at the same time, you can see that I am remembering, you know, sense and there is some hopefulness there as well. But I think that when you are initially hit with that grief, it does sort of, it comes and goes, right? It's really hard at the beginning. It leaves, it comes back. And I feel like the Palindrome poem sort of mirrors that in and out of grieving.
Well said.
That's so true.
I think that's so beautifully said. It's a very subtle poem, and it does have hope. It does have the promise. If we think of hope as not something that secures the future, but enlarges the present, as a preacher man once said to me, it's not my line, but it's so beautiful, and I thought your poem evoked that. There is the hope of redemption and healing. And so Palindrome poem, as Cara has said, it uses lines in a very particular order. If you're interested, I really encourage you to Google it. And the order is so that it can be read from the end all the way up to the beginning and back. So this idea that Cara said of coming back, and grief goes in waves, it's circular, it's not a straight line. This poem is not about a straight line. There's a mirrored circularity. And that makes it so critical that the poet is really on top of their verb usage, their imagery, because it won't work otherwise, right? Because you're literally repeating words, but you're doing it in a very particular order. And at first you might just think, oh, they've just repeated this paragraph. No, go back and take a look. And that is what I kept going back to it. And I had to Google it as well, refresh my memory on what are some of the basic techniques. And I thought what was so skillful about this, it was the winner, because it rose then above the technique to where we want a poem to reside that's well made. There's a soulful, it's an elegy. It's not a happy poem, but it's a very deep poem. And it's still deep but light. Oh, you got it all going on. Congratulations.
Thank you so
and
much.
a real credit, like the scaffolding kind of falls away, I found when I read it. It's like you see, but it doesn't distract you. The form isn't a distraction. It's just this beautiful construction that works so well.
Indeed. Well said. And a waterfall moment, perhaps.
Yeah. And I just want to repeat again that, you know, these poems are judged blind. So Renee didn't know she was choosing the same poet for, you know, winner and first runner up. The poems speak for themselves.
Yeah, I think judging blind is the only way to go. I've been privileged to be a judge in different sorts of contests, nationally, provincially. And sometimes you're judging blind, sometimes you're not. But I think blind judging is the best. And congratulations. It's a real achievement.
Thank you so much. And I did want to say that what you said earlier about how poets seem to be reverting to sort of earlier forms and playing with them themselves. That's something that I've just started to do recently, because I've always written free verse and it's always been very organic, the way I place the line breaks. And I felt like I was stagnating a little bit. Maybe it's the pandemic. So I thought I need to challenge myself, because honestly, I'm not that good. For example, I can't write a sonnet to save my life. And I've tried many times, you know. So it's good to challenge yourself, because it actually bends the language in a way which feels new and fresh.
Beautifully said, beautifully said. And I'm going to put you on the spot and say, may I please use your poem that is uploaded and share it with my Introduction to Creative Writing class?
Oh, I would be honored. Yes.
Thank
absolutely.
you. It'll be a PDF with your name and everything.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
I think one of the most delightful things about your winning poem is, as I said, how excited it made me to go research the form, and hopefully others. And what you've just said is so thoughtful. As Jen said, yay, Pulplet. Bring it.
Yeah, Pulplet rocks. Absolutely.
I'm still stuck on A Sonnet to Save My Life. I feel like that's a title. Save for the taking.
Oh, please take it, because I've tried. Has not worked for me.
So Cara, would you do a reading for us?
Yeah, I absolutely will. I will try not to cover the lens with my paper again, my coffee splattered paper.
And before you start, I will just say it's such a good incentive to get your spring issue, or I don't know if this poem is in the spring issue, but whatever issue this poem is going to appear in, what an incentive to see these poems in the different issues of Pulp Lit, because once you see it, I hope you'll think back to the reading we're going to hear. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
It will be in the autumn issue, so why not get a subscription, and then you'll be sure not to get missed out.
Even better, even better. Okay, grief body. Where winter's last pewter resides, a grief body flails its sleeves. Brute sky, a church's hushed ruin, evening's dull bruise on snowdrifts, everything in a spirit of undress along the street's blanched seams, all this diminishing. Spring's melt can never repair the rough work of time. The eye is a gathering storm, adrift in the cache of memory. The spirit a glum garment, searching the snow for omens. If only to wield a compass, a way back, to the mollusk's milky mantles, to the dew-minted bracken. To the dew-minted bracken, to the mollusk's milky mantles, if only to wield a compass, a way back. Searching the snow for omens, the spirit is a glum garment, adrift in the cache of memory. The eye, a gathering storm. The rough work of time, spring's melt can never repair. All this diminishing along the street's blanched seams. Everything in a spirit of undress. Evening's dull bruise on snowdrifts. Brute sky, a church's hushed ruin. A grief body flails its sleeves where winter's last pewter resides.
Wow.
Bravo.
Thank you so much.
Wow.
Thank you. And and yes, it's been pointed out to me that the slide was incorrect. It said first runner up. It actually is winner. I was putting the slides together very late at night last night, so it was one of the last ones I did. So.
Renee, you're muted. I do see that you're speaking.
Sorry, amazing how one still does that. Beautiful slides. I wanted to say just beautiful slides. Thank you, Jen, for all you do. It's JM. It's just incredible. And congratulations again. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to share Grief Body with my class. Yeah.
Oh, that's so kind. Thank you so much. It's really an embarrassment of riches. I don't even know what to do with myself. Thank you so much. It's really just I feel so privileged.
Well, congratulations yet again, and well deserved.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. And for those wanting some visual poetry, some of the poetry that was read out today from the issue, the Self-Doubt with Rutbuth, is actually quite a visual poem. It goes all over the page, and it does really. It aids the meaning quite a bit. So we have one last prize draw to do. Let's see if this dice will stay on the table this time. And it is number 11.
Moni Brar.
Moni Brar. All right, you win a $20 coupon for anything in the store. Congratulations. And Moni did show up, but not in time to get on. So I'm sorry, Moni, that we didn't get you on. Moni was one of the shortlisted poets. And thank you to all the shortlisted poets that came on: Jude Neal, Patty Palmer Baker, and who else was Catherine? I've lost my list here. Do you have your list? Oh, Catherine Lewis. And Susan Alexander is in the audience but didn't make it on stage. And so congratulations to all of you, and anyone who's out there listening as well. Those poems that did not make the top 3, we often do put shortlisted poems in the magazine. So you know, keep Jen's email in your whitelist, so if she sends you a message, it doesn't go into spam. And thank you, everyone who participated in the launch today. So generous with your time. And Renee, thank you so much for judging and spending the day with us today.
Such a privilege. And I wanted to say a shout out to Mel, Jen, JM, and to Hurricane Nancy. I was transfixed by your beautiful words, sassy, wise, gentle, all at the same time in your cartoons. And I just want to honor the collective of women who make this magazine possible and all these issues. I'm delighted to be a part of this. Thanks, everybody.
Oh, wow.
Thank you.
Wow.
Well, let's bring up our final slides here. So there's a reminder. Those are the J.J. Lee books. A reminder of the Hummingbird Prize for Flash Fiction. And there's our final slide, just so we got through them all. And yes, thank you, Jen and Mel, as well, for hanging in and hosting, and for our editors who are hanging out backstage and coming on to read. So Melissa and Brooklyn and Sierra, we couldn't do it without everybody. You're a wonderful community.
Wow.
All right.
Well, thank you to our wonderful host, fearless leader through another issue.
Thanks, Jen, and thanks for co-hosting and taking on some of that responsibility of
I didn't accidentally end the broadcast. That was like the big fear. There's like a big red button
up in the corner. Yes, in broadcast.
Self-destruct.
All right, so I'm going to head over to Discord now. So anybody who still wants to chat, come on over and say hi, and we'll see you again at the next launch.
Thank you.
Wow.